Good morning, everybody. On this day, I had reason to drive to Mississauga, and so I decided to record my journey from Runnymede to Islington, all along Bloor Street West, so you can see what it's like to drive with all of these bike lanes. Now, this stretch of Bloor Street has been in the news for being controversial, poorly designed, and what have you. I think what you'll see from this video is that traffic moves and it's not chaotic, and it's just a city street. It's actually quite a boring video. So we started at about 7:45 in the morning. I know other people have posted videos, and the criticism has always been, go back at rush hour, go back at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday. Well, I had to leave a little earlier than 8 a.m., but it is a Tuesday. And what you can see is the eastbound traffic is not particularly heavy. We are east of Jane Street at this point and heading westbound, so you'll see some more traffic later on. But Bloor West Village has been doing quite well with these bike lanes, notwithstanding some slightly reckless drivers.
In 300 meters, turn left onto South Kingsway.
My directions are telling me to leave Bloor Street because I put in the directions to my destination in Mississauga, but I decided to take this way so that you could see what it's like. This jog from Jane Street to the South Kingsway is a real bottleneck in this spot, and I think it's the source of a lot of the aggravation that people feel. Because if you're heading south on Jane Street and wanting to continue south on the South Kingsway, you have to turn right onto this short stretch of Bloor Street where there isn't really enough space for all the cars to wait to turn left onto the South Kingsway. So it gets backed up. But it's a complex set of intersections, and it's not possible to let everybody go at the same time, or to leave the lights green so that everyone heading south from Jane Street is able to clear all at the same time. I know as a driver it's always frustrating when you get to a red light and you have to sit there and wait, but it's also frustrating when you're the other driver on the other road that is stuck at a red light and you have to wait. So there's no real way to solve this completely. The best that anybody can do is try to balance it out. This is actually not as bad as I have seen it before. So you're going to see about 9 or 10 cars go eastbound on Bloor Street to head southbound on the South Kingsway before the light changes. That's not a lot of cars, but they are making a turn, and there are pedestrians. So you can't just have high-speed vehicles making that turn. It takes time. There is a right turn lane on the other side of this intersection so that right turning vehicles can queue, but it's not very long. It's quite short. So I think that's one of the things that the city's going to be looking at after they assess this a little bit. They're going to look at signal timing to make sure that the signals are balanced out to give people an appropriate amount of time to go through, and I think they're probably also going to have to look at the length of that right turn lane. Now if you look here, we've got a line of about 38 vehicles waiting for the light. It took about 30 seconds for those 9 vehicles back there to get through the intersection. So for all of these vehicles to get through the intersection would take about 2 minutes. There's no way that that light can stay green for 2 minutes to let everybody go through, because if they did that, then all of the traffic on the east side of the South Kingsway would be backed up, and blocking the intersection of Jane and Bloor Street. Now, I think the length of the traffic has a psychological effect on people, and they feel like it's a really long wait to get to that intersection. But if there were 2 lanes here, you'd have a line that's maybe half as long, but maybe not. I'm not sure how many of those cars were going to turn right and how many were going to go straight. Theoretically, half as long. But it still takes time for the vehicles to go through the intersection. And you still need to make sure that the wait for the other vehicles isn't that long. So, still not going to be in a position where the light can stay green for over a minute for all of the vehicles to clear. Anyway, this is the stuff that I think about when I drive through this area. But if you'll notice, the eastbound side, traffic is flowing very smoothly. Like, you had that lineup waiting for the South Kingsway, but there are no cars on this road right now. And it is 7:51 a.m. So for anybody who's watching this and says, hey, come back at 8 a.m., it's all backed up, it's crazy, it's chaos, I just have to say, you could leave 10 minutes earlier, and this is the traffic you would be facing.
Cyclist ahead. 2.
Now we're heading into the Kingsway Business Improvement Area, which has become kind of a focal point for a lot of the opposition to these bike lanes. It's the usual thing of businesses being worried that the loss of parking is going to mean a loss of customers and a loss of business. But as you can see, there are still parking spaces here on Bloor Street. And as you'll notice from the sign in front of the LCBO, there's also green pea parking lots located behind these businesses. So there's still quite a lot of parking available for folks who choose to drive here.
There's another cyclist. There's another one.
So we're passing through the neighborhood. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 vehicles. And I think we saw about 4 bicycles go by while we were waiting there. And now we've got this huge gap in cars. So to me, this does not scream chaos. It doesn't scream disorganized. It doesn't scream havoc. These are all words that I've heard to describe this layout, this streetscape. I honestly don't know where they're getting that from. One thing that you can look up is the City of Toronto's Vision Zero mapping. If you Google Toronto KSI interactive map, you can find the link to it. What it shows is basically every 2 years somebody has been seriously injured or killed in a collision along this stretch of road. A pedestrian, a cyclist, a motorcyclist, or a driver. In 2024, so far anyway, nobody has been killed or seriously injured on this road as a result of a collision. And now we're just going to see somebody run a red light, so that's cool. Now, one consideration there is that the police do not track collisions between cyclists and pedestrians. And there have been a lot of complaints that cyclists cause issues and endanger pedestrians because the bike lanes are in between the parked cars and the sidewalk. So far, we have no data to support that, but what we do have data for is motor vehicle collisions. And nobody has killed or seriously injured anybody along this stretch since the bike lanes went into place.
There's another bike.
In 500 meters, turn left onto Islington Avenue.
And here is where the bike lanes ended until recently. Now they're extending it to link up to the Dundas previous Spaghetti Junction situation west of Islington. But they're making the connection, which is great because there's a ton of new development that's going to be taking place, and people are going to want to ride their bikes from that new development into the Kingsway Business Improvement Area. It really makes no sense to oppose the bike lanes if you're a business owner in that area. People who ride bikes have a little more money to spend on other things because they're not spending it on gas. They don't take up a lot of space to park their bikes. The bike lanes themselves take up some space, but the purpose of those bike lanes is to protect people from collisions. And what we see when we look at it is they have done that job. Dead customers don't spend money. That's pretty simple. I also want to point out that opposing bike lanes on the premise that you're going to lose business can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're out there making all kinds of statements saying that you don't think that cyclists deserve to have a safe space to ride their bikes, you are scaring off a whole bunch of customers. If you say that the bike lanes has made traffic in your area impossible to deal with, you're scaring away customers who would drive. It's a terrible strategy. Anyway, I hope that this changes some minds and helps some people realize that the opposition to the Bloor bike lanes is really ridiculous. Thanks.